At 6:12 a.m., two men in HOA security jackets pounded on my door, demanding access to my gun safe. No badges, no warrant, just cold eyes and a Bluetooth earpiece whispering orders. I let them in, but not because I believed them. What happened next will shock even those who thought they'd seen everything. But first, let's go back to the beginning. I slowed my pace just enough to make the hallway feel longer. My office door stood at the end, half open. The younger one hovered near the living room threshold, jittery, eyes darting to the family photos, the baby gate on the stairs, the wall-mounted shadow box filled with military memorabilia. His discomfort was a beacon. The older guy stayed close, steps tight behind me, posture squared like he was clearing a room. I reached the office door and paused. "Before we go any further," I said, calm and flat, "I want to see your credentials. HOA doesn't send people like this. You're not even wearing body cams." The older man's jaw flexed. His mirrored sunglasses made him unreadable, but his nostrils flared just slightly. That was his tell. He didn't expect resistance. He was used to fear, compliance, not questions. "You're obstructing a policy-mandated inspection," he said. "No," I replied evenly. "I'm refusing an illegal entry by two unverified men pretending to be authority figures. That's called standing my ground." A beat passed. Silence. Then he stepped forward, trying to loom over me, but I didn't move. I held his reflection in the glass frame behind him, a shadow beside a plaque that read, "In valor, there is hope." He didn't know how much he was telling me. His stance was overconfident, but sloppy. He hadn't cleared his corners. His partner was 5 feet behind me, too far for proper cover. No comms in their ears, no team outside the house. This wasn't organized. It was a two-man bluff. He tapped the butt of something under his windbreaker. Too small to be a duty pistol, maybe a compact Glock. Illegally concealed, if that windbreaker was the best he had for cover. I stepped into the office and let him follow. "I hope you're recording this," I said. He didn't answer. I stopped beside the safe and gestured. "There it is, Fort Knox. What now?" His eyes scanned the biometric lock, the keypad, the triple bolt hinges. I could see the gears in his head trying to recalibrate. He expected some dinky locker under the bed. Not this. Not a steel vault meant to repel even a dedicated siege. "I need you to open it," he said. "No," I said, flat, final. His jaw clenched. "Then we'll have to—" "Touch that safe, and I'll assume intent to commit armed theft," I interrupted, "and I will respond accordingly. Legally." That froze him. His partner shifted uncomfortably in the hallway, sensing the momentum tipping. Then a soft creak came from upstairs. Rachel, maybe just peeking to see what was going on. The older guy's head tilted just slightly toward the sound, and in that moment, he made his second mistake. He looked away from me. I pivoted hard and fast, closing the distance with practiced precision. My forearm crashed into his throat, shoving him back against the wall. His windbreaker rustled as his hand went for his concealed weapon, but too late. I was already inside his reach, disarmed him with a twist that made his wrist pop and pinned him with his own weight. His partner? Gone. The front door was wide open, but the house wasn't secure yet. And this wasn't over. The older one didn't struggle as the deputies cuffed him, but his eyes locked onto mine with a simmering venom, like a man who hadn't failed, only delayed. The younger one, pale and trembling, dropped so quickly his knees thudded against the hardwood. Hands laced behind his head, he didn't even protest. 2 real deputies swept the hallway, weapons drawn, clearing rooms with crisp, practiced efficiency. One of them, Deputy Morales, a former trainee of mine, nodded at me with tight-lipped recognition. He kept his sidearm trained on the stocky intruder as backup, secured the perimeter. Then came the kicker. As the younger man was being helped to his feet, he blurted out, "We weren't going to hurt anybody. We were just supposed to stall him until the others—" His partner's roar cut him off, guttural and harsh. "Shut up, Joel!" But it was too late. Morales turned to me. "Others?" My pulse spiked, not from fear, but from calculation. "Search the street," I ordered. Now, if they weren't acting alone, there may be others in the neighborhood or waiting nearby. The deputy nodded sharply and radioed for immediate backup. Within seconds, 3 more cruisers converged on the cul-de-sac. The strobing lights painted the dawn in frantic red-blue pulses, waking the rest of the block. Curtains shifted, porch lights flicked on, dogs barked. The calm of suburbia shattered like glass. Inside, I turned back to the older man. He was still silent, jaw clenched, chest heaving. He hadn't resisted arrest, but there was defiance in every inch of him. A man who believed himself above the law, and worse, a man who wasn't afraid of consequences. Morales crouched beside him. "Who sent you? Don't waste time." Silence. Not even a flicker of acknowledgement, but Joel, the younger one, was unraveling by the second. Still in cuffs, seated on my couch now under watch, he kept glancing between me and the safe. "Look," he muttered, voice cracking. "We didn't even want to come here. We were just promised a cut if we helped intercept the package. That's all. They said it would be easy. No weapons, no family, just a quick snatch job. In and out." Intercept the package? I froze. There was no package, at least none that had arrived this morning. But now I understood. This wasn't a break-in for cash or guns. This was something more precise, targeted, timed, which meant someone believed I had something worth taking, something they couldn't afford to retrieve legally. I looked at my safe, then back at Joel. Who's they? Names, faces. He hesitated, lips parting, but his eyes flicked toward the door, like he expected someone to walk through it any second, or maybe feared it. And then, softly, he said, "It wasn't supposed to be this complicated. We didn't know who you were." That chilled me more than any threat, because whoever sent them hadn't done enough homework to know what kind of man lived in this house. But they'd done enough to want something I had locked away, and someone else, maybe someone much bigger, was still out there, watching, waiting. The week that followed blurred into a cycle of statements, briefings, and replays, every second of the attempted breach dissected by investigators like a failed military op, which, in a way, it was. But even as the county compiled charges and media buzzed with outrage, I couldn't let go of one thought. This wasn't a one-off. This was a probe. The investigators pieced together that the group operated in cells, small, loosely connected crews fed just enough information to complete their part without ever seeing the full picture. The 2 who came to my door were pawns, and badly trained ones at that. Their sloppiness got them caught, but it also made it clear someone up the chain didn't think they needed professionals. They assumed speed and intimidation would be enough. That meant 2 things. 1, they didn't expect resistance, and 2, they didn't expect us to survive long enough to talk about it. Rachel took it harder than she let on. She's never been one to rattle easily. Years in federal cybersecurity gave her a poker face. Even interrogation teams would envy. But I saw the shift. She started triple locking the doors, sleeping with her phone clutched in her hand. She didn't say it, but I knew what she was thinking. Someone out there still wanted what was in that safe. The drives in question, 2 encrypted SSDs, hadn't been touched in years. Rachel had them loaded with dormant code libraries and classified infrastructure simulations from her time with Tier 3 contractors. Nothing illegal, nothing actionable, but, to the right buyer, worth hundreds of thousands, maybe more. Especially if someone believed they still had federal backdoors or live access credentials. They didn't, of course, but that hardly mattered. Perception was currency in the black market tech world. The GPS tracker under our son's bike was the final nail in the coffin of any illusion I had about the nature of these people. It was wrapped in shrink wrap and disguised as a reflector. Had I not physically cleaned the bike chain myself that morning, it might have gone unnoticed indefinitely. It had its own SIM card linked to a burner account out of Nevada, traced, of course, to nothing. They were watching us, logging our routines, measuring the gap between Rachel's school drop-off and my morning runs, calculating when the house would be most vulnerable. I replayed every mundane moment from the last month with new eyes, every white van, Every new neighbor, every time I caught someone on our block a little too interested in which car went into which garage. They knew enough to try, but they didn't know enough to succeed. The county brought down charges like a hammer: home invasion, impersonation, conspiracy to commit larceny, endangering a minor. The DA was aggressive, pushed by media pressure and the collective outrage of a suburb that thought it was safe. The footage from our cameras played across the news for days, and local stations painted me as a quiet neighborhood hero. I didn't care about the attention. I only cared that they were in custody. The HOA, embarrassed and blindsided, did what bureaucracies do when their flaws are exposed. They issued an apology that sounded more like a press release and launched an internal audit of their protocols. Security vendors were reviewed, new ID standards were introduced, meetings were held, boxes checked, but it all felt cosmetic. Because what they didn't understand, what most people still didn't grasp, was that this wasn't about an HOA breach. It was about access to information, to vulnerability, to the illusion of authority, and someone out there still wanted in.